Hey, I'm Adam Jusko from ProudMoney.com. In this video, we are going to answer the question, what credit score do you start with? But before we do that, I'm going to ask you to please subscribe to this YouTube channel if you have not already, and if you have already, I thank you for doing so. So this may seem like a basic credit question, but I think even people that have some history with credit scores and understanding how credit scores work don't necessarily know what the answer is to what credit score a person starts with. So, do you start at 0 and have to claw your way all the way up, or do you start with a perfect score and you get to keep that score unless you screw up, or how exactly does it work? Now, the good news is no one starts from 0. The way most credit scoring models work is that there is a range of potential credit scores, and the most common range is 300 at the bottom up to 850 being a perfect score. So you don't start at 0, and actually don't start at 300 either. So you're not ever going to start at the complete bottom. On the other hand, you are not starting at the top. What you actually are going to do is start somewhere in the middle. So for most people, that middle ground is probably going to be somewhere between 650 and 700, maybe a little bit over 700. Sometimes I hear people who start off with a credit score all the way up to 750, but it is definitely not something that I would count on. And I would tell you that if you start off with a 750 credit score, there's a good chance that there's very, very, very little information available about you yet. So I would not start celebrating that, because what you need to do once you get that first credit score is you need to sort of solidify that credit score and build upon it by continuing to do the right things, meaning you have to pay your bills on time, number one. Don't go too crazy in terms of getting too many credit lines, and then you just kind of have to do those things correctly over time so that that credit score goes up. Now, if you do the wrong things, you could either stay at a lower or average level, or your credit score could even backslide. Now, you might be thinking, why doesn't everyone start with the same credit score, right? If you're somebody that didn't have credit and you are getting your credit score for the first time, doesn't it seem that everybody should start at the same place? Well, the truth is, in some ways, everyone does start at the same place, but we kind of never get to see that place, because the way a credit score is devised the very first time is based on some pieces of information that the credit reporting agencies have on you. And so the reason that people start at different places is because those first pieces of information can be different depending on who you are. So for some people, they may have been authorized users on somebody else's credit card. For some people, they may have a loan before they have any credit cards, whether that is some type of auto loan or whether it is a student loan or whatever. So that could affect the way their credit score starts. Some people may get a secured credit card and do it that way. Some people may get a store credit card. Some people may get lucky enough to get an unsecured credit card, maybe as a student while they're in college. So there are a lot of different ways that you can start your credit history. And so when your first credit score is calculated, there usually has to be 3 to 6 months of information about you before that first score is calculated. So technically you could say that everybody did start from the same place, but by the time there is enough information about you, everybody has different information. So when that first score is calculated, everybody's is going to be a little different. And also, when we talk about what credit score you start with, we are using sort of vague language because there are two major credit scoring models. Number one is the FICO score. Number two is the Vantage score. Now, FICO is sort of the more important of the two. It is the one that many more lenders use than the Vantage score. In fact, FICO, the Fair Isaac company that started the FICO score, they were the inventor of the credit score, the idea of using a number to signify your past credit history. So FICO is sort of the big dog in the credit scoring game. So when you say, what credit score do I start with? Are you talking about FICO, or are you potentially talking about VantageScore, the competitor to FICO? Now, both of them use the same scale in terms of the number that you would come up with, starting at 300 going up to 850, but where you start may be a little bit different on each one of them because they use slightly different calculations. Now, having said that everybody starts off at a little bit different place, that might make you a little bit nervous if you are someone that is starting off at a little lower place. Maybe you're starting at 650, or maybe you're even starting a little bit below 650 when you get your first credit score. Well, you shouldn't really feel that nervous about it because that first credit score is calculated on such a small piece of information that it is really a temporary number until they can get more information about you and really figure out how you handle credit. So if you are starting off at a little lower place and you do everything right, you pay your bills on time, you don't get too much credit, you don't go hog wild getting yourself new credit cards immediately, well, then you can build that number up in a fairly short time. And if you start on that higher end, it doesn't necessarily mean that your score is just going to keep going higher and higher, very easily, because maybe you have a little more information than someone that started at a lower place. You are going to need to do the same things to either solidify the place you are at or, grow it over time. So whatever that number is that you start with is not super important. Just know that you are sort of in the middle of the pack in terms of how the credit card companies or any other loans that you might want, how those financial institutions see you, because whether your score is a little higher or it's a little bit lower, they're also going to look at the fact that you have what is called a thin file, not very much information. And so part of their decision making in terms of approving you for other loans or credit cards is also going to factor in the fact that you don't have very much history. Now, I talked about the fact that the credit scoring ranges go from 300 to 850, and so if you are starting in the middle, you might wonder who is sitting down there in the 300s and 400s and maybe even, low 500s. Well, those places are reserved for the people that have had credit for a while and did not do so well with it. So if you're starting in the middle, if you do everything wrong, if you default on your loans, if you skip out and don't pay them, well, then you are going to lose points from your credit score. So starting at that middle place, if the first credit card you ever have, you don't make your payments and then eventually you just skip out on it and never finish making your payments, well, you're going to lose, 100 points or more right off the bat because the first time that you had credit, you blew it. And so you're going to lose a ton of points, and then you're going to find yourself down there in the 400s or 500s. And if you do it more than once, it could get even worse. So you get to start at a middle place as someone who is new to credit, but once you make a mistake, you can fall down. And when you have a thin file, when you don't have much history, it's even worse to fall down there because it's even harder to climb out because it's hard to get credit again. And then there's a long way to go to even get yourself back into that sort of average credit place again. So if you got a free credit score from maybe your credit card or a site like Credit Karma or whoever, whether that is a FICO score or it is a VantageScore, if it's in that 650 to 700 range or whatever, you should feel good about where you are starting from because you have been given a starting place. Yes, 850 may seem like a long way to go, but you don't have to get to 850 to be considered to have an excellent credit score. But those first couple years after you first get that first credit score are pretty crucial because you can choose to go one of two ways. You can either do the right things and build up, or you can let it slide and then have a very long climb back out of those super low credit scores. So if you do the right things, you'll get in the right direction you want to go regardless of what that actual number is the first time you see it. So that's it. Thanks for watching. And as always, please go to proudmoney.com where we do credit card reviews and have personal finance news, talk deals, and all sorts of other fun stuff too. Thanks for watching. Bye.